Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Brothers and sisters, welcome again to another Quran study. We will be reading from chapter 16, verse 111. The chapter's name is the Bee al-Nahl. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. The day will come when every soul will serve as its own advocate, and every soul will be paid fully for whatever it had done, without the least injustice. MashaAllah, this is a very good reminder from God to us, actually all by ourselves. You know, when we die, we go to the hereafter, and then there will be a judgment day, and on that judgment day, we will be accordingly on whatever world, right? So there won't be anyone who can help us, no messengers, no prophets, no angels, no one can help us. We are all alone at that moment, and we are going to be judged on the deeds that we have done, and God will be the judge. So we need to understand, actually, this is very important. You know, like a lot of people, they think that certain messengers and prophets and certain imams, or like people whom they think that are like highly, or they have like special gifts, or they think that those people have these certain qualities and situations next to God, that, you know, if they would ask God to forgive them, then, you know, because they were asking, God is going to forgive, or, you know, like, don't send them to hell. This idea is actually like being used by the devil a lot. And with this idea of people basically to follow certain other people, right? Like they think that if you go and you know, follow a certain person in a certain group, when you ask them why they are just blindly following them and doing everything what those people are saying, is because, mainly because they think that that person, or a few, like the group of people who they believe in, that they are going to save them from hellfire. They think that, you know, when God decides to send someone deserves to go to, if that person is within that group, or that person, while he was alive and in this world, was following that person, they think that that person is going to save them from hell. And this idea is basically like, this is a very popular idea in the Muslim world. Also, actually, the same ideology we see also in Christianity, right? Because I- like, if I'm not mistaken, the majority of Christians, the majority of the Christian belief is that if you don't believe that Jesus died for your sins and Jesus is the savior, then basically you're not going to be saved. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you have made, like if you're a good person or bad person, as long as you believe that Jesus is the savior and he died for your sins, then you're going to be saved. Like, this is the majority of the belief that most Christians have. And in the Muslim world, most of the people, like anyways, the people that I know of, like they certainly have this idea of intercession, right? Intercession in the way that, you know, you are gonna end up in hell, but then because you said that you believed in Prophet Muhammad, for example, you accepted him as a prophet, and you, in your practical life, you practiced his teachings. But I'm not talking about the Quran, the so-called teachings that basically have nothing to do with Prophet Muhammad, actually, you know, the sunnah, the so-called sunnah. And they believe that because of doing the sunnah, they will be saved from hell and they will end up in heaven. But this verse 111 shows clearly to us, like, and there are many other verses where God says, you know, like, there won't be, no one can help anyone. Like, you can't be helped by anyone. God is the only one who is in full power, and he is the judge, and he decides. And like, there is no helper except God. The angels can't help you, the messengers can't help you, the prophets can't help you. Like no one can help you because, basically in the beginning, the reason why we came to this world is because we made a mistake, right? We were not like the angels. We thought that the devil could also be some kind of a God with a small g. So we made this mistake, and all the other souls that came to this world made the same mistake. And this also counts for Prophet Muhammad. He made the same mistake. That's why he came to this world, and he was also tested. He was chosen to be the prophet, the last prophet, and he was chosen to receive the Quran. But nowhere in the Quran says God that Muhammad is going to save like the ummah, right? This is a general belief, but nowhere in the Quran does God say that Muhammad is going to save the people who believe in him. Nowhere does it say. It says basically the opposite. It says you can't save anyone. You can't even save your own child, your uncles, your like you can't save your own children. So when we think about this idea of intercession, while there are so many clear verses in the Quran, and still we have like the majority of the Muslim world believe in intercession, believe that Muhammad is going to save them. This shows actually how lost the Muslims are. Like the people are like really lost, you know. And one of the main reasons I think is because they don't really read the Quran. They don't really um, because most of the times it's like from my own experience. I come from a Sunni family, and I was raised in the mosque. We went to the mosque, we had teachers, the imams. Like I have the traditional Sunni family life. I had that, so I can easily say that you don't end up um, learning the Quran. Actually, they teach us how to read in Arabic. They teach us everything else except the Quran, actually. And the only thing that we learn about the Quran is like how to read it, because you need to, when you're doing the prayer, you need to read certain verses, right? Like that's basically it. And then the idea is to remember certain verses. They really like if you remember a lot of verses, yeah. But when you ask the majority of the Muslims what certain verses say and what God says in the Quran and what it advocates, like they don't have any clue, because you don't learning the Quran, you end up learning so many other things, mostly the stories of Muhammad about the. Oh, I can we meet brothers? I hear myself.
What happened?
Yeah, I hear my own. Now?
I
Okay,
can
now.
hear.
We can hear you.
Oh, 1 second.
Just mute it if you hear your own self.
If years, there is something as that you can record voice, and you can record pictures, right? So it's a similar thing, and we will be, everything that we have done will be shown to us. There's even a verse in the Quran where we are going to be very like surprised, like that it didn't miss anything, like the smallest, even the smallest things, it's not being missed, because God knows everything. And it's easy for him to to do all these things. And the reason why everything is recorded is actually to show to us, because God already knows the future. It's basically for us to show what we have done, and to why he deserves to go to hell, because of his own deeds. Yeah, that's why God says every soul will be paid fully whatever it had done, without the least injustice. 112. Prohibiting lawful food brings deprivation. God cites the example of a community that used to be secure and prosperous, with provisions coming to it from everywhere. But then it turned unappreciative of God's blessings. Consequently, God caused them to taste the hardships of starvation and insecurity. Such is the requital for what they did. Like, this is also an amazing, right? Like this gives us an example of, when we have a lot of provisions and everything is fine, like, we really need to be appreciative. We need to remember God all the time. Don't forget that it's basically from God. It's not because we work hard, because we are smart, because we are like successful, because like anything at all, right? All good things come from God and God alone. All the good things that come to us basically and only comes from God. So this should be like this should be a standard rule, like a law that we shouldn't forget, right? Everything is from God, and we need to be thankful, we need to be appreciative, we need to remember that it's from God, and we need to remember that it's only because of God and not because of ourselves. God is the one who provides, and he decides how much he gives, like. The messenger also remembers, gives a remembrance on this, like, we should not really focus ourselves in this short period of time that we have in this world, like, to focus on what we are going to eat and to drink and what we are going to do with our lives, right? Like, that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be, how can we use the limited time that we have to be able to make it to heaven, to save our souls, right? And we already know that the prohibitions are already being calculated. It's already known, like, it's not going to change. God already decided how much food we are going to eat and how long we are going to live. So the smart thing to do is basically to, think of the hereafter and do everything for the hereafter, actually. And again, the measure of the covenant gives this example. And, he says that this life that we have, let's say we're going to live for 100 years. If you compare this to the hereafter, which is eternal, basically if you divide 100 by eternity, it's zero. Mathematically, it's zero. So this means that everything that you do for this world, one day it's going to end, and it's like for nothing at all. And God says clearly in the Quran that, this life is like, it's an illusion. It's basically an illusion, because it's going to end one day, and it doesn't have any weight at all. So we need to focus ourselves to, think of the hereafter, and not really um, worry about the prohibitions and that kind of stuff. That all that will be carried on by God, because he promises that. And in this example, in 112, we see that, you had this group of people, they were unappreciative. And God says, consequently, God caused them to taste the hardships of starvation and insecurity. He gave them first security and prohibitions. And because they were unappreciative, they turned unappreciative. So this also means that, when you, like, God has his system, right? He wants to he tests us by certain things, and sometimes he gives like a lot of prohibitions, and sometimes he takes that away, to and in those certain moments we need to be like, even when we don't have anything at all, we still need to be appreciative and submitters. We submit to the will of God, and if that's the will of God, then we submit to it. We'll be happy anyways, because we know that that is being done by God. And that is the quality of a submitter, right? Like in every circumstance, we should be appreciative. We should like remember God. We should know that God is doing everything and He's arranging everything. So as submitters, we submit to His will, and that's it. Like that's the whole point. 113. A messenger had gone to them from among them, but they rejected him. Consequently, the retribution struck them for their transgression. Yeah, and again, here we see, like in many verses in the Quran, God gives us the example that He is sending messengers and prophets to this group of people, and when they reject the messengers, like in most of the times, we see that retribution strikes those people, and this is again an example, like, why shouldn't we expect a retribution after the messenger of the covenant has come to this world, and people, most of the whole world rejected him, right? Like that's something that we can easily say. They rejected him. They didn't accept the message, and until today, like there are so like most of the world, they knew about 19, because the messenger of the covenant, he had the videos, he had like he published a lot of things. He traveled, he went to almost all of the Muslim countries, so they knew about him, they knew about the miracle, they knew about 19. They still know actually about 19, because when I talk to certain people of a certain age, I asked them actually, like, is this the first time you heard about 19 or Rashad Khalifa? And most of the times I see those people, they know actually about it. They remember that they have read something about Dr. Rashad and about 19, but then they forgot about it, right? Because their leader said, yeah, that this is not right. Because their leaders rejected 19 and the measure of the covenant, and those people, they blindly follow their leaders, so they also rejected. But it's like we shouldn't be surprised that a retribution will come after a messenger that God has sent is being rejected. And this verse is a clear example of that, right? Like a messenger had gone to them from among them, but they rejected him. Consequently, the retribution struck them for their transgressions. And we know from the miracle of 19 from the Quran, the publications of the Messenger of the Covenant, that this will happen in 13 April 2029. A asteroid will hit the world, and then that will start like the retribution. The smoke prophecy will start, and people will remember eventually after that. A messenger came to them but rejected him, and they are going to end up believing in him. And shortly after, they're gonna go astray again. That's what the Quran tells us. 114. Therefore, you shall eat from God's provisions everything that is lawful and good, and be appreciative of God's blessings if you do worship Him alone. So, if you worship God alone, then the right thing to do is to be appreciative of God's blessings, that everything that He has given. And God clearly says that we need to eat from God's provision, everything that is lawful and good. Lawful means there are verses in the Quran, a few verses basically, where God explains to us which food is prohibited and which is not. And he gives also the details about the certain situations. Basically, what is prohibited is blood, animals that died by themselves, the meat of the pig because it's dirty, and anything that is not, that is. Uh, so if you don't use the name of God, if you use other names, then that's also prohibited. While what I forgot the exact word, but that's basically it. And God says to us that we need to eat only from what is lawful. and good. Like this is also a point. For example, you fast food, for example, it's not prohibited, right? Like you can eat. God doesn't say, right, that kind of stuff. But as a human being, we need to be careful of what we eat. There was this certain discussion about sugars. Sugar is also something that God has created, and almost in like a lot of fruits and a lot of provisions that God has created, there is basically sugar. The thing about eating, the prohibitions of God, is that we need to eat and drink, but not too much. Like we need to be thinkful of how we do our diets, basically, because it's for our own benefit. 115. Only for foods prohibition. Okay, yeah, this is what I was referring to. He only prohibits for you dead animals, blood, the meat of pigs, and food which is dedicated to other than God. Yes, the word I was searching for was dedicated, and God helped me by that, mashallah. So, which is dedicated to other than God. If one is forced to eat these without being deliberate or malicious, then God is forgiver, most merciful. In the footnote, we read the most devastating, what is it? Trichinosis parasite, Trichinella spiralis, also the pork tapeworm, Taenia solium, survives in the meat of pigs, not the fat. More than 150,000 people are infected annually in the United States. And this was in the year when the Quran was translated, right? Maybe, and now it's basically probably much more than that. C6 145, 146, and Appendix 16. So, in the footnote, the example that has been given is like, this is science, right? And I also read something about it. Like, if you want to kill this parasite, you basically need to burn the whole thing. And at that moment, it's not even edible anymore, right? Like a lot of people, they think when you cook pig meat in a certain way, you kill everything and it's all fine. But the science says the opposite. You can't really kill it by cooking it. It survives. And if you really want to kill it, then you basically kill everything. And there is no reason for you to eat like very burned meat. So that's why God prohibits us to eat pig meat. And if you compare the prohibitions that we have for us, like that are there, and if you compare that what is lawful for us to eat, like this is maybe 0.0001%, right? Of all the food that we can eat in this world. But still you have people that, like, it's crazy, right? You have like so many things to eat, which is lawful and so tasty and so nice, but still you go and end up eating the one thing, one of the four things basically, that is not lawful. So this shows that, that, yeah, people don't care, I think, but it's also for your own benefit, right? If you don't eat a bad thing, it's also good for you, because you are being protected from that parasite and from that disease. And I remember, like um, in preschool, I think you said this in, yeah. So we had a teacher, and he had this disease on his body. Like things were falling out every time when he was itching, or is it called itching, scratching? Yeah, he was scratching his body all the time, his arms, and certain things fell off from his skin, but all the time and everywhere, like his full body. And that was because he had this certain disease because of eating pig meat. Yeah. So it's smart not to eat that, and this is the reason. Even if you still have people that eat it and they are maybe fine, but it doesn't matter. Like the chances of you getting a certain disease is very high. Like why risk it while you have like so many other prohibitions that from you can choose and eat from. He only prohibits for you dead animals, blood, the meat of pigs and food which is dedicated to other than God. If one is forced to eat these without being deliberate or malicious, then God is forgiven most merciful. So if there are certain moments where you really can't do without, or you're like in a situation where you really need to eat them, then of course you can eat from them. But like that doesn't mean that you can like go on and full eat the whole thing, right? Like you just need to eat it as much as you need, I think, for the certain situation. 116. You shall not utter lies with your own tongue, stating this is lawful and this is unlawful, to fabricate lies and attribute them to God. Surely those who fabricate lies and attribute them to God will never succeed. And the majority of the Muslim people, they do this certain thing. They fabricate lies and attributes to God. They say that God prohibits like so many different type of food. Like there are so many things that are prohibited, right? For example, they say that horse meat or donkey meat or like snake meat or certain birds or like certain fish, certain sea creatures. Like there are so many things that they say it's like that it's like prohibited, and that God did this. Of course, they can't use the Quran to prove their point, right? And what is left if you can't use the Quran, right, to prove the thing that you're saying? They of course go to the Hadith, and the Hadith is full with lies and attributes to God and to the Prophet. So, but if we look at the Quran is very clear about the prohibitions. God gives us all the details that we need and everything that we need to know about, like the things that we can or shouldn't eat. And God says, surely those who fabricate lies and attribute them to God will never succeed. So it's a clear message. And it's important to be careful, right? Like if we think of something which is prohibited, we need to look at the Quran. Like, did God prohibit this certain thing or not? If it is not there, and the messenger also says this, right? He says we only follow the Quran, nothing but the Quran, and only Quran. If something is not in the Quran, then like it's not like we don't have to follow it. We shouldn't follow it actually, right? Because and I'm talking about like the whole religious thing, right? Because you have also certain other things in the world. I'm not talking about, for example, how to drive a car, right? It's basically meant how we need to lead our lives. They enjoy briefly, then suffer painful retribution. Yeah, and one other thing, by the way, when I gave this example of the car, of course, when you enter your car, like we need to remember God, right? We need to remember that a car is like a very nice thing to have, which is extremely useful. Like because of cars, we can travel to and do very long distances in a very easy and a comfortable way. This is also like a blessing from God. And before we start the engine, we need to remember God. We need to say Bismillah, and then ask God for to help us on the road and to protect us, etc. They enjoy briefly, then suffer painful retribution. For the Jews, we prohibited what we narrated to you previously. It was not us who wronged them; they are the ones who wronged their own souls. Yet, as regards those who fall in sin out of ignorance, then repent thereafter and reform. Your Lord, after this is done, is forgiver, most merciful. And in the footnote, it says, oh, this was also the same footnote, yeah, 115, 118. So there is one detail basically about this situation is in the verse, which there were certain things that God prohibited for the Jews, okay? And those were the intestines, it's called intestines, I think, yeah? Uh, yeah, they were also prohibited, and um, the what is it called? The fat of those intestines, if I'm not mistaken. But there were certain things prohibited for the Jews, and so. But today, the Muslim world, they believe that everything of the pig is prohibited. In the Quran, when we read that it's only the meat, God says the meat of the pigs, so the fat is not included. The fat of the pig is not included. It's not prohibited. It's only the meat. But when they read it and when they say, no, the whole thing is prohibited, like the whole pig is prohibited, you can't eat anything of that. But when you look at the Quran, God gives us the details of what He prohibited those certain things to the Jews, right? And this is um, forwarding us to that part. For the Jews, we prohibited what we narrated to you previously. And that is basically please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the intestines and the fat of that certain thing. Let me see. Thank you, brother. Um, Livestock al-An'am. This is from chapter 6. Sorry. Is it An'am? Yes. For those who are Jewish, we prohibited. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, brother. Yes, please. Don't mind my English. For those who are Jewish, we prohibited animals with undivided hoofs, and of the cattle and sheep, we prohibited the fat, except that which is carried on their backs, or in the viscera, or mixed with bones. That was a retribution for their transgressions, and we are etc. Yeah, okay. So this is what I meant. Like, thank you, brother, for sharing the details. That is basically prohibited, and I can also, maybe good idea to show it. Yes, this is the verse. So let me go back. So the point that I want to make is, if God wants to make something unlawful to us, then He gives us all the details. If the fat of the pig, if God wanted that to be prohibited, He would have said this to us, right? He would say the meat and the fat. But we read in the Quran, it's only the meat. Abraham 120. Abraham was indeed an exemplary vanguard in his submission to God, a monotheist who never worshipped idols. Because he was appreciative of his Lord's blessings, He chose him and guided him in a straight path. God knew Abraham, right? He knew that Abraham was one of the souls that deserved to go to heaven, and that this soul deserves to be chosen, right? And that's why He chose. And Abraham was appreciative of Lord's of His blessings, and we can see the example of Abraham. He was the father of submission. He never was an idol worshiper. We granted them happiness in this life and in the hereafter. He will be with the righteous. So God gives happiness in this world, but also in the hereafter. If you are appreciative, and if you submit to the will of God, and if you're a submitter, right, and if you follow all the rules and also the exemplary rules. Yes, mashallah. I'll read that after. 123. Mohammed, a follower of Abraham. Then we inspired you, Mohammed, to follow the religion of Abraham, the monotheist. He never was an idol worshiper. In the footnote, we read, this informs us that all religious practices which came to us through Abraham were intact at the time of Muhammad. See 2278 and Appendix 9. So when you talk about following only Quran, most of the Muslims, they come up with this argument that not everything is mentioned in the Quran. And the first example that they give is that in the Quran it's not mentioned how many times we need to pray and how many rakats, and they don't know how to pray. And Muhammad came and Muhammad taught them how to pray. There are even hadith about this, that Jibril, Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, came to the prophet. He showed him, and he came as a human being, in the looks of a human being, and he showed him how to do that practice. But we learn from the Quran, basically, that the 5-time prayers, it didn't start with Muhammad, it started with Abraham. And the people at that time, they already knew how to pray. They already knew how many rakats they needed to do and how many times in a day they needed to pray. So this was not something which is like non-known by those people, but it was clearly known by all of them. And we learn from the Quran, of course, that the Jews and the Christians, they lost the contact prayers. But there's certain people who, in that area of Saudi Arabia, they had the Hajj, they had the fasting in the month of Ramadan, all those things, they were actually practicing it, but they were making a lot of mistakes. And God sent the Quran to correct them, to correct all those mistakes. And when we read the Quran, for example, God says to us that when in chapter 72, verse 18, it says, for example, clearly, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا, like the masjids, the places for worship belongs to God and God alone. Do not mention any other names next to God, right? This is, for example, one of the things that are being corrected. And the reason is because they were mentioning other names, like the Muslims of today are doing it as well. They are mentioning Muhammad's name, Abraham's name. They are reading certain verses in the Quran which speak about certain people. We see their names. Even you can read, like in the Quran, the words of the devil. But when you're doing the contact prayer salat, God clearly says that the contact prayer salat that we are doing, it's meant to remember God. So when you remember other when you mention other names, so you remember others next to God. Even if you say that you believe in only one God and you worship only one God, but this practice is meant to remember God and God alone, right? Because it's the contact prayer. You're in contact with your creator. Like, why do you need to mention other names while you're praying? Like this, it doesn't make sense, right? The whole point of the contact prayer is to remember God. And the prayer is meant to to grow our souls. Um, it's like giving dinner to your soul. And when you remember other names next to God, then yeah, then it goes away. It's basically idol worship, and it's very wrong to do that. And people need to stop doing that, mentioning Muhammad's name or Abraham's name or any other person's name, and only remember God and God alone. 124. Let me check how many minutes I have. Oh, I need to go faster. The Shabbat abrogated. 124. The Shabbat was decreed only for those who ended up disputing it, Jews and Christians. Your Lord is the one who will judge them on the day of resurrection regarding their disputes. And God says the Shabbat was decreed only for those who ended up disputing it. And now, of course, the Shabbat, like we don't need to do the Shabbat. It's like ended. We have the Quran now. We have all the practices that we need to do. There are certain people, even in certain people who also call themselves submitters. They even think that you can be a submitter while being simultaneously a Jew who follows the Sabbath, right? But this is like really wrong. The God tells us clearly that this book, the Quran, and with its all laws, it's this is the final book, right? And we need to follow all the rules here. And when God says that it's finished, like the practices before us, then we need to stop doing that. But for example, the contact prayers are not finished. God still tells us to do the contact prayers, salat, right? It was also done before, but the Christians and the Jews, they forget about it. They lost it. And now the majority of the Muslims, they do practice the uh, I don't think they say that about Shabbat. Uh, yeah, I didn't understand that, brother. Maybe we can talk about it. 125. Oh, sorry. Your Lord is the one who will judge them on the day of resurrection regarding their disputes, those who ended up disputing it. You mean the Shabbat was decreed only for those who ended up disputing it, Jews and Christians? Your Lord is the one who will judge. Yeah, so they didn't do the Shabbat, like they did some tricks. But let's talk about this, God willing, after I read it, brother. How to spread God's message. 125. You shall invite to the path of your Lord with wisdom and kind enlightenment and debate with them in the best possible manner. Your Lord knows best who has strayed from his path, and he knows best who are the guided ones. And if you punish, you shall inflict an equivalent punishment. But if you resort to patience instead of revenge, it would be better for the patient ones. This is actually not at least for myself, it's not really easy, especially when we have debates. it's very difficult to talk with certain people about submission, following only Quran, the message of the covenant, like the whole message, because it's very difficult for people to accept this message. And then we end up like having heated debates maybe sometimes, and then, but God, reminds us that we shouldn't do that, right? We should be it says clearly, you shall invite to the path of your Lord with wisdom. We need to use wisdom and kind enlightenment and kind enlightenment. Yeah, maybe this is something that we need to practice more on, or talk more on, how to do that, and debate with them in the best possible manner. Actually, the message of the covenant is a very good example on how to do this. We can see certain debates that he had. We can see certain videos. There are also voice recordings where he has this debate with the Arabs, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something that gives us a good example. But I think we can talk about it. Your Lord knows best who has strayed from his path, and he knows best who are the guided ones. And if you punish, you shall inflict an equivalent punishment. But if you resort to patience instead of revenge, it will be better for the patience one. Yeah. And so God advocates that, if certain things happen and someone needs to get punished, for example, for any deed that he or she did, it needs to be an equivalent punishment. And but God says, but if you resort to patience instead of revenge, it will be better for the patient ones. You shall resort to patience, and your patience is attainable only with God's help. Oh, this is amazing. Yeah. Yeah, like you shall resort to patience, and your patience is attainable only with God's help. Do not grieve over them, and do not be annoyed by their schemes. God is with those who lead the righteous life and those who are charitable. Like as submitters, we need to know that this world is going to end. We need to know that everything that has been done is being done by God. Everything that is good comes from God, and everything that is bad is because of ourselves. So, remembering this and knowing this, we need to go through our lives with this basic central idea that God is running everything. He is doing everything. The world is going to end eventually. We need to be patient. We need to know that everything that we are going to do is like meant to the hereafter, right? We need to save our souls, and we need to like use every excuse and opportunity to help us gain that place, right? Like, for example, when God says here, be patient, like if certain things happen in our life and there is a moment where we can practice that patience, we should do that, right? Like we need to remember this and then say, okay, what is going to make my soul, what is going to grow my soul, which deed? Okay, if I'm going to be patient, that is going to grow my soul more. So then you need to choose for that one, right? Maybe sometimes it's not going to be very easy, but like God teaches us how to handle certain things. Okay, we are here in Surah 17, the children of Israel, Beni Israel. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. One, most glorified is the one who summoned his servant Muhammad during the night from the sacred masjids of Mecca to the farthest place of prostration, whose surroundings we have blessed in order to show him some of our signs. He is the hearer, the seer. So this is the verse where God talks about when most of the Muslims, they think that his body went to the farthest place for prostration, and they use the masjid. It's called Masjid al-Aqsa. Masjid al-Aqsa means the farthest masjid. So they think that this masjid is in today's Jerusalem. They think it's there, but at that time there wasn't a masjid. There was no masjid there. They even have invented lies that Muhammad went there and he was the imam for all the messengers and the prophets. They prayed there, and Isa was behind him, and they make up certain lies about this situation. But basically, what it means is God says the night from Masjid of Mecca to the farthest place of prostration. This is like this is not a physical. It's not. He's not traveling with his physique, right? It's like how to say, with his soul, basically. Yeah. And then it says, surroundings we have blessed in order to show him some of our signs. He is the hearer, the seer. So God took his soul and showed certain signs. It was also when he received the Quran. His soul received the Quran in one night. His body received it in 23 years. But that was the night. Similarly, we gave Moses the scripture and rendered it a beacon for the children of Israel, that you shall not set up any idol as a Lord and Master beside me. They are descendants of those whom we carried with Noah. He was an appreciative servant. We address the children of Israel in the scripture. You will commit gross evil on earth twice. Uh, you are destined to fall into great heights of arrogance. And I think we can clearly see this today, right? On what's going on in the world and what those people did to certain people, to certain group of people in this world, like how how bad it can be. Like, yeah, at least to me, this is something that shows that, right? Of course, you have also Jews that are very good people. Like they don't want wars, they don't want fights, they want peace, right? They try to follow the Bible, they try to do good things. um, but yeah, this is what God says in the Quran, and He said, "We address the children of Israel in the Scripture: you will commit gross evil on earth twice. You are destined to fall into great heights of arrogance." When the first time comes to pass, we will send against you servants of ours who possess great might. When the first time comes to pass, we will send against you servants of ours who possess great might, and they will invade your homes. This is a prophecy that must come to pass. Yeah, so we can talk about it. Like, did this first time happened anyways, but let's talk about it. Afterwards, we will give you a turn over them and will supply you with a lot of wealth and children. um, yeah, was this when Pharaoh? No, we can talk about it. Afterwards, we will give you a turn over them and will supply you with a lot of wealth and children. We will give you the upper hand. If you work righteousness, you work righteousness for your own good. But if you commit evil, you do so to your own detriment. Thus, when the second time comes to pass, they will defeat you and enter the masjid, just as they did the first time. They will wipe out all the gains you had accomplished. Your Lord showers you with his mercy, but if you revert to transgression, we will counter with retribution. We have designated Jahannam as a final abode for the disbeliever. Yeah, like really amazing verses. I think I had also my 40 minutes. So, God willing, I will end up here and then we can talk about the verses that we have read, especially the last few verses. We can talk about it. If I have made any mistakes, may God forgive me. If you brothers and sisters have any questions or things to add, please go ahead.
So I think you're very good study.
MashaAllah, brother. Thank you.
MashaAllah. Yeah, I'm really curious actually. Yeah, because this was also something in my mind I wanted to ask actually 2 days ago, I think. And MashaAllah, we have read the verses, but maybe we can start with, let me, the one which you, where was it? The animals with undivided hoofs. Can we maybe start talking about that, Brother Suleiman? This refers to animals like the camel, ostrich, rabbit, or others that do not have a clothed split hoof. Specific animal facts: while the meat of cattle and sheep was permitted, certain fats were forbidden. The verse lists 3 exceptions: fats that were allowed, fat on the back, fat around the intestines. Yes, okay, that's what enough. Fat mixed with the bone. All other fats, such as the sweet or the fat, were prohibited. Okay. So there were certain things that was prohibited for them, right? Because of their transgression. Is that right? And was this what you meant, brother?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and about 124. Because I don't really think I really understood what it meant, but God is talking about the Jews and the Christians disputing the Shabbat. Like the Shabbat was decreed only for those who ended up disputing it. Like they did certain things. Like for example, they were not allowed to. What is it? Mhm. To kill animals, like to or to go and fishing. Please correct me.
They were not allowed to go fishing.
What is it called? Not only fishing, but
They're not allowed to work.
they were not allowed to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And they just disputed it and they went to work.
No, I
What is
think
it
it
called?
was a dispute. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the dispute was different.
Okay. So the Shabbat was decreed only for those who ended up disputing it. And then it says Jews and Christians disputing it. They were disputing it, but what were they disputing? The Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
Was there another example in the Quran where maybe this was an example or something I
Okay,
learned? Yeah.
mm-hmm. So I think the between dispute between them is about the day, right? Because you see, like there's Saturday, but for the Christians, they do it on Sunday. The Jews they do it on Saturday, and that's basically the dispute that God is talking about. And then
Okay,
for
makes
the
sense.
yeah and the I'm gonna post uh, about the other verse, also 17 you asked, yeah. So I'll post that to Tim Jim quite long.
Chapter 17.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to read it, brother?
Yeah, just a part that says the two times scholars have debated.
Yeah, from Surah is also
Yeah,
known as Ben Israel, outlining a divine cycle of rise, fall, and resurgence for children. This is in the context of Quranic prophecy. These verses describe a historical pattern where spiritual and moral corruption, transgression leads to worldly consequences, followed by a period of mercy and restoration. One, the prophecy of two corruptions, 17:4. The Quran states that it was decreed or addressed in the scripture, the Torah, that the children of Israel would rise to great power, but would twice fall into gross evil and extreme arrogance. The nature of the evil, this is generally interpreted as a deviation from the monotheistic and ethical path set by their prophets, leading to social injustice and the rejection of divine guidance. Oh, okay. Okay. The two times scholars have debated the exact historical timing of these two events for centuries. Many classical commentators link them to the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem. To the first warning and punishment, 17:5. The first time refers to a period where, following their transgression, God sent servants of ours who possess great might. The invasion. The phrase invade your homes literally probed the innermost parts of the dwellings, signifies a total military defeat and loss of sovereignty. Historical identifications. Many historians and theologians identify this with the Babylonian invasion led by Nebuchadnezzar II, 586 BCE, which resulted in the destruction of the first temple in the Babylonian captive. Okay, so what you're saying is both happened according to this. Others suggest earlier Assyrian invasion
Yes.
service. Also, it already happened.
Yeah.
I actually, I
It
was
already
thinking.
happened.
Yeah, I was thinking that the first one happened, but not the second one. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But okay, okay, so we can understand this as that. Mhm. Okay, rejection of Jesus, punished invasion by. Oh, okay, that was basically their retribution after. We had the same. We had the same discussion in the Turkish study, where when you look at the throughout the Quran, we see almost every time when they reject the messengers that God has sent, there follows a retribution. Right? We see this throughout the whole Quran. So in the case of Jesus, we were talking about what was their retribution, right? And here we read the punishment, the invasion by the Roman Empire led by the future Emperor Titus. The second temple was destroyed, and the Jewish people were dispersed across the Roman Empire, the diaspora. Okay, this matches the subsequent verse 17:7 to enter the temple as they did the first time. Okay, yes, that makes more clear to me as well, brother. Thank you, mashallah.
Okay.
And in what is this? The 17:3. It says they are descendants of those whom we carried with Noah. He was an appreciative servant. Like, but God is talking about the children of Israel, right? Like he's basically saying all of them are, but aren't. Okay, yeah, okay. So most of the people think that the flood happened in the whole world, right? That everyone died except for Noah and a group of people that were with Noah in the ship, right? That's what basically they think. So they think that Noah is the second Adam, actually, or like, right? But we learn from the message of the covenant and actually looking at the Quran, it's not the whole world. It was basically that area when it happened. The flood happened to that area, specifically at that time in a certain place, right?
Mhm.
So, and God tells us that they are descendants of those whom we carried with Noah. Like, this is a detail, right? Because God tells us this, He gives us this information. So this is something that we should know about them, that they are the descendants of those whom God carried with Noah.
Mhm.
It's a piece of information, yeah. And when God says we address the children of Israel in the scripture,
Yeah.
you
So
will commit.
this is referring to, I think it says Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. It says these are known as the blessings and the curses chapter. In these foundational texts of the Torah, God warns that if the people remain faithful, they will be exalted. But if they fall into arrogance and corruption, God will send a nation from afar to besiege their cities and invade their homes. The language the Torah uses, language very similar to the Quranic verse describing the invaders as fierce and mighty and warning that the people would be scattered and their sanctuary temple laid waste. And number two, it says the prophetic books, Isaiah and Jeremiah. It says, while the law was given in the Torah, the specific decree that it would happen twice is often linked by the scholars to the later prophets who lived through the first destruction. Jeremiah, he explicitly prophesied the first destruction by the Babylonians, the quote unquote servants of great might. And then it says Daniel, in the book of Daniel 9:24 through 27, there's a famous prophecy of 70 weeks, which many theologians, both Christians and Jews, interpret as a timeline for the restoration and then a second destruction of the city and the sanctuary. It says, in Jewish history and scripture, these two events are so central that they are commemorated on the same day of the year, ninth of the month of Av. The first is the destruction of Solomon's temple by the Babylonians, 586 BCE, and then the second destruction of the second temple by the Romans, 70 CE.
Yeah, so basically, God told them that it's going to happen, and it happened, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
yeah, yesterday, brother. Oh, but is it out of topic? No, not really out of topic. So yesterday, we had a family meeting, and the topic basically came to a point where we were discussing Apophis, and the general thing that most of the people say is, okay, but what are you going to do if it's not going to happen? You have here a prophecy, right? For example, so okay, what are you gonna do? Okay, like what do you want me to answer? Like say, oh, okay, then I'm going to admit I was wrong and I'm going to leave submission and like become a Sunni again, right? My response to that was, if the same as the prophecy here in the Torah, right?
Yeah,
So
say I'll give you $10. That's it.
yeah. they 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 can divide and spend. Yeah, so basically,
Yeah.
how I respond to that is, you know, like for example, they asked the messenger of the covenant about, he was saying the world will accept submission, right? Based on chapter 110. He says this is meant for our time. It's going to happen in our time, maybe in 20, 30 years, but maximum 50 years, like within 50 years. And they say, okay, is this something that you desire? Is this something that you want to happen? Or is this like, is it really going to happen? And then he says, no, this is definitely going to happen. And they ask, okay, like, how do you, based on what? And he says, as you know that tomorrow the sun is going to um, um,
Rise.
rise at a certain time. How do you know that? Like, because of the signs, because we know that the earth is rotating, we know how fast it rotates. So, based on the factual science and the signs, we know it's going to happen. So, as you can see those signs and you know that's going to happen. The same thing is that he was seeing also signs of that prophecy that is going to happen, right? So when you ask the humans, how do you know that the sun is going to rise again tomorrow? And the question asking them, but what if it's not going to happen? It's like crazy. Like if it was not going to happen, then we wouldn't have seen those signs, right? Then this meant that the world is going to stop moving. It's going to stop turning. So the same with the Apophis, for example, right? We have these certain signs and like so many evidences, like to think that it's not going to happen. This means actually, okay, then why? Then that means actually that we don't have the signs, but we have the signs. Like, how should I imagine that it's not going to happen while God has sent us so many signs? Right? It doesn't really make sense. The question doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, just say I'll give you $10. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Don't make it complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah, we have the math, so I mean,
Yeah, brother, mashallah, definitely.
just look at the proofs if you wanna believe. Believe. If you don't wanna believe, fine. If you wanna go to Saudi Arabia on that day, I mean, be my guest. I'll pay for your flights. And
Sit there. Uh, but do you think is it out of topic?
yeah, I mean, they can plan for Hajj in 2020. They're traditional Muslims, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they can plan for Hajj and tell them to plan for Hajj in 2029 and go there early. Be there by the
Mm.
13th on Friday.
Uh,
If you don't,
they, yeah, they placed notifications on their phones,
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
like reminders.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, really. My brother did that. He put this reminder. He said, Jafar said, 13
Uh-huh.
April, Friday,
Yeah.
the asteroid Apophis is going to hit the
Uh-huh.
world. Like this, and then he
So
put this in
you
his
should tell
phone.
them. Say, what if? So you should tell them like, what if it does happen? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna become a submitter?
No, but then they say, okay, we'll accept. Okay, it's not really important, like.
uh,
Uh, that's most of the times what happens, right? Like we can also see this throughout the Quran, right? Like the example of Moses and the people of Pharaoh, they say to Moses, like, pray to your God to help us, right? Basically, they say, help us remove this retribution from us. And the moment it's been removed, they say, yeah, but like, okay, we're not gonna follow you anyways. They promise to follow, right? They say, we're gonna believe in you. Just first remove the retribution, then we really gonna follow. And the moment it's being removed, they go straight, like immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we still have other verses to discuss,
Yeah.
and maybe we could talk more about it in the off topic, right? Or are we talking about the verses? I'm confused. Yeah. So actually, we discussed a few things I guess we wanted to talk about, right? I think we discussed two of those things. Is there anything else you had
Maybe
questions
about
about, Brother
food,
Jaffer?
brother. Yeah, maybe about food. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is also something that, especially in debates about prohibitions, is being used a lot. And that word is the word good. Where was that? God says lawful and good, right? So they say, okay, God doesn't say only lawful, he says lawful and good. And when you have all these hadiths where there are so many prohibitions, they also invent certain lies about those things. For example, they say, yeah, you can't eat that, it's prohibited. Why is it prohibited? Because it's bad, it's not good. They use this as an excuse, the word good. Where was it? I tried to find it. But what can we say about that? Like when God says good, like I remember you saying of giving some examples. For example, if you have certain food, it can be lawful food, but if you mess up with the food and you make it very bad and um, like bad hygienic way, or like, what are your thoughts about that?
Everything that is lawful and good. What are my thoughts about that? Where is that?
Yeah, this was. I'm trying to find it. Uh, it was patience. It was with the food.
Oh, prohibiting lawful food.
Yes, counters presecurus, but okay, here. Yes, therefore, in 114, therefore, you shall
You
eat
should
from
eat,
God's
yeah, if it is
provisions,
lawful and
everything that
good.
is lawful and good.
Hmm.
And good.
Hmm.
They say,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but
like
that is
there's,
not.
yeah, I mean, like for example, eat a tree, bark from a tree. You know, it's lawful, but it's not like edible, like something that you want to eat, for example, right? So it means like you want to eat the vegetables or the fruits, that grow on the tree, but you're not gonna eat the
Mhm.
bark,
Yeah.
of the tree, for example. So, and God has
Yeah.
made these things for us. He has made them obvious, like what are edible, things that are. There's some cherries, for example, or things that berries that grow on the trees that are not prohibited, but obviously, if you eat them, you're gonna die.
Toxic. Oh, okay.
They're
Yeah.
toxic,
Yeah. Yeah.
things like that.
Hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, also like God doesn't necessarily, mention things that nobody will eat anyways in their right mind, so they don't need to be mentioned.
Hmm.
Pork is
Hmm.
something like, oh, it's edible, many people will go and want to eat. So, obviously it's prohibited and God mentions it. But God
Hmm.
is, I mean, basically talking about foods that we eat,
Hmm.
these are things that are nutritious for us, not harmful for us, you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Makes
Like
sense.
people have taken this too far, some people have taken this like way too far, and like people make complicate things by defining what is good, and everybody has their own definition of good.
Especially the Jews.
Mm.
They have something like what is it called in their language? If
Not just
it's
the Jews, but also the Muslims too.
yeah,
I mean,
and
they
but
have so many prohibitions, right?
yeah, like what I okay, so like I work a lot with Jewish people, like
Mm-hmm.
for the last 15 years, I think. Especially there is an area here in the Netherlands where you have like most of the people are like there are a lot of Jews there. So when you do
Mm-hmm.
renovations and all that sort of things,
Mm-hmm.
the and before that I didn't really know a lot of knew a lot of Jewish people, but when I met them and I became like you talk with each other, you also talk about religion, like a lot of things. The first thing that struck me was that their religion, that like their practical religion, was almost identical to Sunni Islam. Like when the things that were prohibited for them, right? It was like almost identical, which was prohibited for the Sunnis. Like there were so many things. Also, the thing that they put on their head. That there are so many things that struck to
The
me.
thing
Like it
that they
was
put on their head,
identical. Yeah, it's called
yarmulke. Yeah.
yarmulke. Okay, and we call
Yeah.
the Muslims call it takke. In Turkish, it's called takke. What do you call
Yeah.
it in
And the Muslims,
French?
what they put
Yeah, in French, what do you? Oh no, sorry.
in Urdu.
Urdu. Yeah, Urdu.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a cap, basically they call it a
Okay.
topi,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted to also talk about this. I mean, we were talking about you were talking about prohibitions, and we were talking about the Quran alone, and the fact that we're supposed to follow the Quran alone, and everything that is lawful, people shouldn't prohibit things. This is basically going back to verse 116, right? You shall not utter lies with your tongue, own tongues, stating this
Mhm.
is lawful and this is unlawful, And I think the part I've mentioned previously is, people think that some people think that, they want to be safe, so they say that, for example, hold on, I'm looking for the verse here.
What do you mean
Okay,
by
so
they
yeah,
want to be
so
safe?
so they want to, like, they want to play safe, So they say, okay,
Mhm.
we will not prohibit something, like, for example, when it comes to circumcision, So they say, no, no, we will not prohibit something. Oh, you're making it haram. Like, that's a big lie, right? For example,
Uh-huh.
like
Mhm.
making something haram that's not haram, right? But they
Mhm.
forget the other part is also equally bad. Like if something is not like if something is haram, right? If something is prohibited by God,
Mhm.
and then you're making it lawful, that's also uttering a lie to God. That's equally as bad, right? But they're saying no,
Mhm.
because you know how you have people that are saying that if you want to circumcise, go ahead, like it's fine. Like if you're doing it for this reason and this reason, like if you just want to do it for aesthetic reasons, or if you want to do it for whatever other reasons, they think health reasons, like they think that it's some people think that it's better or it's clean or whatever, you
Hygiene,
know.
yeah, that
But
kind of stuff.
because they say because Quran doesn't because they say it's not because Quran doesn't say it's prohibited, right? And we already talked about the part that you know God says we have to follow the Quran. I mean, we cannot follow any innovations. And we've talked about how Satan has promised to God that he will distort God's creation. And we talked about how you cannot, for example, chop off someone's arm or a thing,
Finger,
their part of their nose
ears.
or anything, any part of their body, against their will for no reason and think that it's okay. They have pain, they have bleeding, and in this case, the person changes forever. Their body changes forever. You mutilate it, and that's satanic, right? So if you're making something satanic lawful, that's also uttering a lie to God. That's equally as bad if you're on the wrong, And God and this reminded me of the verse I wanted to share. It's in Surah 7, right? It says, "My Lord prohibits only evil deeds, be they obvious or hidden, and sins and unjustifiable aggression, right? And to set up beside God powerless idols, and to say about God what you do not know, right? So they are saying things about God that they don't know. Like there's people that are saying, "Oh no, well, God gave it to Abraham," and so we can do it, and that's also a form of unjustifiable aggression because you're committing this act of aggression against someone, chopping part of their body against their will, where they cry with pain despite given anesthesia and everything, right? So it's an act. You can't slap a person for no reason, right? Let alone do something like this that will literally scar them for life, you know. So yeah, just part I wanted to mention, like when people talk about things that are not prohibited in the Quran. Like for example, it's not prohibited in the Quran for you to. God doesn't say anywhere in the Quran like you cannot chop off like your daughter's arm, right? So you can say, can we say that? Well, God doesn't explicitly say that I can't chop off a person's arm, so then that makes it okay, So yeah, I mean, God
Mhm.
in the Quran, God prohibits us from all kinds of sin, all kinds of unjustifiable aggression, all kinds of hearsay things that you can confirm from the Quran. Don't utter lies about what proof do you have, for example, that Abraham was given this thing, you have no proof from the Quran to say that, no confirmation from the
Yeah,
Quran.
no justification. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
verse for it. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
And they use tradition as excuse while there are verses in the Quran. And a lot of people who call themselves submitters even use this, that group of people, where God says that you shouldn't follow. Actually, basically, please correct me, but this verse was very clear about them doing certain things because it's tradition. And God prohibits that. He says, no, don't follow
Mhm.
them because it's really like,
Mhm.
yeah. And even that, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how did they even attribute it to Abraham, right? Because they're taking the Bible and then they're
Mhm.
as a source, and then they're
Mhm.
denying it, for religious laws.
Imagine that the messenger of the covenant would have said, like, the Bible is for 99.999% true. There are only one or two things that
Mm-hmm.
are like mistaken, right? But he
Mm-hmm.
says, please correct me, right? 90%, something like that. It was 90,
90%,
90,
yeah.
yeah, 90%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then when you look at the Quran and you come to the point where it's talking about the circumcision, but you read in the Quran, it's basically not about circumcision. It's basically about making a deal by worshiping God alone, right? And following His commandment. It's not about that act of
Mm-hmm.
circumcision. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
makes
mean,
really
it's
sense.
clearly because also, uh, I remember there is a study where one of the women who was used to be Christian, she asked him about the covenant of Abraham, right?
Hmm.
Now, when a Christian asks about the covenant of Abraham, they're only
Mm.
referring to one thing, which
Mm.
is
The
circumcision,
circumcision.
right?
Yes.
And the messenger said, that this is mentioned in the appendix. It says the verse about Abraham's covenant, and he said God made a covenant with Abraham, and he said we have an appendix. We did a very like quick job writing the appendix. It probably took us 1 hour. I don't know how they did it in 1 hour, but he said there is a covenant, and he said that covenant is mentioned in that appendix of the
Mhm,
Quran. So go to the
mhm,
appendix from Surah 2, I think he said. So if you see Surah 2, there's one verse that's mentioned, and God mentions, and the messenger has mentioned, and that is 2 125, right? So the messenger has already clarified that the covenant mentioned is one covenant, it's not multiple covenants, it's in 215. No, 25, is it? Yeah,
We have rendered the shrine, the Kaaba, a focal point for the people in the
2
sixth century.
125,
You may
yeah.
use every shrine as prayer. We commissioned Abraham and Ismail. You shall purify my house for those who visit. Is this it?
Yeah,
Yeah. You shall purify my house for those who visit, those who live there, and those who bow and prostrate. And remember, my Lord, make this peaceful land a prayer. Provide these people the fruits.
yeah. So this verse is mentioned under Abraham's covenant
Hmm.
in 2 1. So one must ask, like, what does it
It's
have to
basically
do with
about monotheism.
circumcision? Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it have to do with circumcision, right? Nothing.
Yeah, like a crazy, crazy
Yeah.
guy invented that.
Mhm.
Like, how crazy are you?
No, it's satanic. It's inspired by
Yeah,
the devil, you know?
yeah. Also, it
And
does
it's
have
like
that.
a blood sacrifice
Wow.
ritual, you know?
Like, but how? Like from so many things, but from really so many things, brother. Like, you can also say, okay, let's cut, a small part of your ear. You have people who do that. Like the part which is
Hmm.
very soft. You
Hmm.
can, yeah. Sorry, you can miss that. Maybe.
Yeah, I was
You know.
gonna say, like, how do people actually think that it makes them righteous? Like if
Hmm.
this is
Mm,
like the epitome of like making it to heaven essentially, like the way, like how does this, I mean,
Hmm.
it's the exact opposite.
Hmm.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
and I want to say something, brother. Like,
Hmm.
we talk about this subject a lot, and looking at certain people who call themselves submitters and like even agreeing on doing these things, I think is really important. And it was very good, that we mentioned it a lot, because this is like a very gross sin,
Hmm.
like a very
Yeah,
gross
and it
sin.
has been promoted for many years, from by the
Hmm.
submitters for decades.
Hmm.
So everybody in submission who had children, they all got circumcised from based on what I know.
Yes.
Most of them,
Hmm. Hmm.
majority of them, they circumcised them. Imagine so
Hmm. Hmm.
how.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's been done like 99.95% to children, like who don't have. And the other thing, part brother, is like, for example, in the Netherlands, there is no law that
Hmm.
is against it. Like when you say,
Hmm.
okay, I'm a Muslim and I'm going to do circumcision, or I'm a Jew, I'm going to do that. Yeah, then
Hmm.
they even have practices. They say, okay, do it in a good way, and then we have like hospitals to
Hmm.
help you out.
But if you say
Even
you want to do it for the girl, then there's laws, right?
then there are certain things that they say,
And
okay, this is.
it's mutilation.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And
Uh,
and if you have uh, what is it called, uh, insurance, yes. And like insurance money pays it as well. They
hmm.
even help you
Hmm.
out with that. It's like, it's
Right, right.
crazy.
I think in the Netherlands, I think it was the Netherlands, right? Or
What?
I think it was Netherlands where they tried to ban it once, and then they
Mhm.
got a lot of opposition from the Jews.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jews, so they're not gonna do that. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
no way in the world here in the Netherlands they're gonna
Hmm.
do something against the Jews, because
Yeah.
they mostly control everything here. Like.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
so.
I think from that standpoint, Europe, the medicine in Europe is more advanced than in the U.S., where they have independently studied the effects and they have come to the conclusion that it doesn't have any health benefits.
It's
it's all a
bad.
scam.
No, it's
Yeah,
even bad
and it's harmful.
psychologically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, psychologically and physically.
Yeah, and physically, of course. Yes, definitely.
Mhm.
I heard. Uh, I th- um, I think it were two from two. I had friends. So one of them told me that he regretted after doing it because
Uh-huh.
he saw
Mhm.
something happened. Like there was some
Mhm.
complication and it was very bad and it was so he felt so bad about it. Like he said, I really regret doing it.
Mhm.
And brother, it maybe in most of the Sunni Muslim world, but specifically in the Turkish world, um, when you are not circumcised,
Yeah.
then there is a general idea and a law that says if you're not circumcised, you can't marry. Like no one is going to give his daughter to you. They say, yeah, if you're not circumcised, we're not going to give our daughters to you. You need to be circumcised. And they use,
How?
Oh my
Yeah.
they,
God.
Like, how are they
they
gonna know? Like, do they like ask you?
yeah,
Like, what the heck? Like,
yeah,
that's such a weird conversation. Like, that's not even their business.
yeah. Yeah, but circumcision happens like as a
It's crazy.
it's like a party going on. Everyone knows that person is going to be circumcised. It's like marriage. You have this party. You invite people. You tell them. You like it's like a huge party when a kid is going to be circumcised in Turkey. So everyone actually already knows that the elders, they know
Mhm.
that you're the circumcised or not. In my case, for example, like everyone knows that my son is not circumcised and he's not going to be circumcised. They already know it, and they say, yeah, but what if he's going to be in love with a Sunni girl and then and then the parents are gonna say, yeah, but your child is not circumcised, so we're not going to give our daughter to you. Like, that's the excuse. They already know. So he can't hide it. He can't hide that he's not circumcised. Uh,
Yeah, but that's just their parents' approval. I mean, like, if
uh,
once you reach an age, they don't have to have their parents' approval,
Brother,
right?
we shouldn't care, when in that certain type of things that we really, there are certain things I think really we need to be so clear about that we don't care. We only care what God says and what God prohibits. Like that is important for us. Even if like
Mhm.
yeah, they
Yeah.
they say he's not going to be able to marry a girl.
Yeah,
Like
but you
what
can
does
tell him
that
like,
mean?
my son is not gonna marry an idol worshiper anyways.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
already
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. I already know this, right? Like so,
Yeah,
but,
mashallah.
but they say
You
no,
can
you're
keep
not
your
going to.
daughters
Yeah,
to yourself.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So like, it's actually, brother, really, it's really different. But like, it's as if you know the future. Like certain things. Like we know, for example, that the world is going to accept submission. We know about Apophis. We know that certain things are going to change a lot. Uh, yeah, but they don't. They think it's going to stay as it is, and be as it is. Oh, even after 50 years, and based on that, they make these decisions. But we can make decisions based on the information that has been given to us from God, right? Like about the hypothesis is like a very good example of that we need to. And please correct me if I'm wrong, right? I don't know, are we gonna go out of the the topic?
What do you
Like
mean?
is this
What, I
is
mean,
not.
you have a question?
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, no, not
What's the
question,
question?
yeah, something. Yeah, so about apophis, like
Mm-hmm.
when I think about apophis, basically we are talking about a certain information which is something that's going to happen in the future. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to happen in the future. This information is given to us by God because only God is capable of doing a certain thing, and with all the numbers and all the related information about this asteroid, right? With that, we know it's going to happen. So uh, Joseph, when he was interpreting the dream of the king, right? This was information about the future. So God, with that type of method, let's say that's a method, right? Like interpreting a dream is a method. In our case, the method is basically looking at the numbers, and because we live in the time of the miracle of 19, and we can, for us, like it's the same thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and what happened with Joseph was that because this information was 100% true and it is from God, they started preparing for it, right? And God told them how to prepare. God gave them the information how to handle the situation, right? So and when you look at these two separate things, both happening in the future, both the believers know that it's definitely going to happen. The non-believers, they don't believe in it, so they are not going to be prepared for it. And as believers, preparing for that certain situation is not the same as, for example, having an insurance. You understand what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
So
because
yeah,
we
yeah.
know it's
So
going to happen.
mhm. So the thing
Yeah.
is, like, even Joseph's example is not a very exact comparison in this case. Like, for example, I mean,
Mhm.
an exact comparison is like, Noah, for example, telling
Ah,
his people
okay.
that the
Yeah.
flood is coming, right? And the people
Mm-hmm.
prepared, right? And they left. And in Lot's case, for example, Abraham and Lot were told
They
this was
prepared.
happening, and Lot prepared. They left, right? They got
What?
up and they left, to
Oh,
save them.
when it started happening.
Yeah, so they were told that they should leave in the morning and not look back, right? And Noah's people too. They were told Noah was told in advance so he could prepare the ship. I mean
Mm-hmm.
his ark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that they couldn't leave. So I mean, likewise, it makes sense when you have something bigger than Noah's flood coming and
Yeah,
bigger
much
than
bigger.
coming. So God
Bigger than
God
anything.
obviously wants the believers to get heads up, so we can be
Yeah.
saved, right? So I
Yeah.
mean that's the whole idea. I mean, and
Yeah.
if these people don't want to believe it, I mean maybe they don't deserve it. They
But
don't
brother,
deserve to know
there is also one thing
because
which, yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
the messenger talks about how also his he said that he was inspired that his life was very much parallel to Noah's, right? And
Mm.
he I forgot I don't remember on the top of my head the appendix I mean the submerged perspective in which this is, but I think it's one of the last later ones. And he says only those who stand with the messenger, right? Those are the only people that are going to be saved. Like most people, the rest of them were drowned. you
Mm-hmm.
know so I mean if you look at currently what's happening, I mean most of these people that are not believing, I mean they have their own ideas about things, right? They're not I mean uh, with the exception of a few people, most of them already are not clear about what Quran alone means and what God alone means, and they mock and ridicule us and everything. So if they don't believe, for example, and they mock you, maybe they don't deserve to know. Maybe they don't deserve to get the
Mm.
heads up. So I mean, it's nothing. It doesn't make a difference in your salvation. I don't know, but I mean, if God wants certain people to know, then only those people can benefit from that. Ahead of time.
Yeah, I want to add something, brother. Like,
Yeah.
um, you have also this idea, and we had this with certain, like one of the guys, I think so. He, instead of looking at the numbers and the evidence and accepting that this can't be done, that this is only possible and can only be done by God. Like you have all these independent information, right? For example, the date that is being um, um, how do you say discovered, and then the date
Mm-hmm.
that's going to just like all these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
etc. They say, okay, yeah, but like God promises um to protect the believers. So yeah, it's not really important for me when it's going to happen, what's going to happen. It doesn't matter where I am, even if I am there in that area in the Middle East where it's going to strike, I'm going to be saved. But like,
So
isn't
he has already declared that he's a believer, right?
yeah, but yeah, and I wanted to add, brother. So isn't God protecting? For example, isn't
So is that different
God
from
was
saying
already
that
yeah was
no?
God was already protecting Noah by telling him to prepare and that it's giving him in
Mm-hmm.
advance the information.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So isn't
also
that same
part
as
of
isn't that
protection.
same? Yeah, is that's kind of similar to what Noah's son said? You know, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's fine. I'm gonna just
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know
go to the
seek protection.
yeah.
Yes, he's probably thinking, oh yeah, I'm also a very good person. God will save me. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't
You know,
need to
the
go with
messenger,
these
the
crazy
messenger,
people. You know.
the messenger talks about it, but I think they misunderstand it. He says that if a nuclear bomb is going to fall very close to you, if you're a believer and you don't like, you're not meant to die, God is going to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
like He did with Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
But like when God sends you like so many signs and so much information, like when you combine this was, brother, I think it was really an important part, discussing apophis. Like this is very important because you connect all these dots. We connect the apophis, the appendix, the the what the
Mm-hmm.
Messenger of the Covenant has written, the chapter, Surah Dukhan, the smoke, the verses, when you connect all of those things. Also, the thing that the messenger said, that the world is going to accept submission within 50 years. Like in 13 years, the 50 years is going to end within the next 13 years, right? So when you connect all these dots, then it makes really sense. Like you see this big picture, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
God and when God shows you this big picture with all that
You're not
information, like
appreciative.
yeah, like it's like and still thinking, yeah, okay. The thing what he said that really disturbed me. I really didn't like that specific sentence. And he said, yeah, um, I told him that the work that has been done, the mathematical calculations that we have
Mm-hmm.
on the website,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
he basically said that he appreciated the work that is being done. Like, but then I told him, I said, listen, it's not about the work that has been done. It's about the fact that God arranged everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not because we could do certain calculations. Yeah, like we are
Mm-hmm.
the like we need to be praised, right? You understand what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like, why are you
Yeah,
praising the ones who have done the calculation? It's not about the calculation.
because
It's about the.
because it's about the jealousy. You know, like that's what he sees.
Mm,
Because he sees, oh, these people did all this stuff, and like, how come they did it, and like they think they're so
mhm,
smart,
mm.
or these are the kinds of thoughts that people will have, like, or they think they're better than us. I mean, jealousy. I think it boils down to jealousy.
But brother, the first thing that, yeah, like when you have this discussion, you talk about it. Like I don't really want to. That's not the first thing I want to think of. But when you look at all those things that they say, you end up getting this, um, yeah, the conclusion that is, yeah, what you say, maybe jealousy, yeah. Okay, because that's a way of, God, like
Why did
God.
God? Because they're saying like, why? Like, yeah, yeah, like, for example, a messenger, right? When God sends a messenger, right? They say, "Oh, why this person is a messenger? Why am I not a messenger? Like I should be the one having this information. Why him? Or why John is discovering,
He had blue
these
eyes.
things and
And he was healthy. He looked healthy. That's why.
He's not even Turkish.
Yeah,
It should be us, the Turks.
yeah. The,
You know, especially Okta.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like Jesus was
Yeah,
also
Mary was Turkish, Jesus was Turkish,
Jesus
and
was Turkish.
they're not even Turkish.
You might as well
Yeah.
say Moses is Turkish too.
Yeah, yeah. All the world,
Yeah,
it
he
started
was
with
so
the
far from being
Adam was
Turkish.
Turkish, brother. Brother Adam was
Oh,
Turkish. Sorry to say, but it all started with Adam. Yeah,
no,
but
Mazani, I don't think.
what, what do you say? Serious? Okay. Yeah, you have this thing that you can do the DNA test. I don't know if it's like correct, but it shows
Mhm.
where your like
No, it is
your
correct. Yeah.
is it correct, or like you're 20% Spanish and you're like
Hmm.
10% Eastern, like that type of things, right? Like, and
Hmm.
then like people are like shocked to see like people who are so proud that they are Turkish and they have like
Hmm.
this Turkish blood is red and white coming out of their veins, like so proud
Hmm.
of like being that their ancestors were the Ottoman Empire, like that. And then
Hmm.
they end up doing this DNA test, and this guy is like German,
Hmm.
80%. Like his whole world collapses, brother. Like everything that he believed in, his future plans
Uh,
and everything. And
is
they
he a
start.
submitter?
No, no, this was like it was
Oh,
like yeah.
just a random person. Yeah, that's why people should like the messenger said the biggest problem is people who don't know who they are. They identify
Hmm.
themselves with things. Like I was just talking to one of my
Yeah.
coworkers the other day
Yeah.
about this. He was pretty interested in
Yeah.
like
Yeah. It's
the
worse now
soul.
because now people identify as animals. Too. Yeah, I'm a cat.
Oh really?
Identify as a cat. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
No,
I think I saw what wait
yeah,
what?
there's people identify as animals too, and then like some people would crazy, if they have a lot of money, they'll go and change their bodies to look like a dog or a cat.
Mm, mm.
You
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
but
some people
anyways,
even dress up as
yeah, yeah, but I mean, yeah, the identity thing, like people don't know who they are. I mean, first and foremost, we're servants of God. That's the identity, and where we came from, these are just garments we're temporarily wearing. We came from the high society, all of us. So for submitters to like, be stuck in these ideas, I mean, they forget the big picture. I mean, they have a very narrow vision, and perception when it comes to life. I mean, we should look at this world and ourselves with the eyes of the Quran, what God teaches us. And God teaches us that we are all children of Adam, right? So, I mean, we're all related to each other. We're all one, you know. So this is basically Satan's way of trying to divide people and make them think, oh, I'm better than this person better than that person because whites are better, or you know this nation is better than that nation, and discriminate people and cause hatred and animosity. And sort of like arrogance from like how Satan said, "Oh, I'm better than him," So, but these are things that people have used in the past to like you know turn people against
justify.
each to turn people against each other, basically.
Yeah, they even justify horrible crimes
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
you saw it like in the colonial times and
Hmm. Yeah.
invasions of other countries. Like it
Hmm.
was horrible.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
suddenly,
sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say suddenly, like
Hmm.
you convince yourself and these other people and these groups of people to accept this. Oh, because these people are like this when. It's probably the exact opposite. The ones persecuting are going to end up in hell, and the ones dying and being oppressed are probably going to end up being they probably go to heaven or something if they die, especially early. Or God knows their situation. Um,
Yeah, God tells us, the God has given us these things so that we can recognize each other. And God says the best among you is the one who is the most righteous. So these other things obviously don't matter, anyways. But yeah, going back to the subject, I guess we were talking about, you had you wanted to discuss how to spread God's message, right? Brother Jarvis, when you were reading, you said you can talk about that. Wisdom
Um,
and kind enlightenment and debating in the best possible manner.
yeah, oh yes, definitely. This is like, yeah, brother, this is I think that I make mistakes mostly. And then, at a certain point, sometimes Mardani, tells me, gives me like feedback that I need to change certain things. When we have a debate, let's say, yeah, and then we're talking about this certain topics, and then there's this desire to. I know, of course, our job is not to convince, because that's not, we can't actually, because the hearts of those people is not in our hands, right? It's in God's hands, and God knows who deserves anything. But there are again moments when you come in a certain point because of the debate. It's going on like for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then maybe it starts to going in a wrong direction, because you want to give the right information, because this information is the true information. We are so certain that this information is right, but then yeah, I don't know, it's a little
Hmm.
difficult for me to explain, but
Yeah. So I think I
afterwards,
understand.
yeah.
I understand
Mhm.
what you're saying. So like you talk to people, you try to give them the message, and then you try to give it, in a good way, and debate with
Mhm.
them, and they're not getting it, and it starts to get
A little bit
more aggressive,
frustrating. Mm.
frustrating, and it starts to
Mhm.
show. But
Mhm.
God says, debate with them in the nicest possible manner, um, unless they transgress
Plus,
too,
they try, yeah.
yeah, and that's what happens, when you try to invite people to submission, like if they're closed-minded and they're just arguing with you back and forth,
Mhm.
that in itself is a transgression, if you look at it, right? But the thing is, when you see someone is blocked, there's no point debating with those people too. I mean, if you see someone who's genuinely trying to understand or genuinely trying to debate with you, like from like an open mind,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's clear when you debate with people like that. Like you debate with, there's people that you debate with them, but their mind's already made up, right?
Mhm.
So if you keep talking to them, you're just basically talking to a wall, and eventually you are going to get frustrated. And but
Mhm.
those aren't the people that you're supposed to have conversations with. In my opinion is like
Mhm.
I don't care about those people. Like I'll talk to people if I see like they're completely closed minded. Like I'm not gonna waste my time with them and my energy. I'd
There,
much rather give it for people who are more thirsty for the message.
I understand, but there are
Mm,
two. I'm sorry. There are two things I want to add, maybe, and then
mm,
we can talk more about it. So the first thing is, when you have a person who is, let's say, 24 years old, yeah, and this person is like grown up in this society, and I can totally understand a person who is in that society grown up, because I'm also I come also from the same society, right, from the same teachings, etc. So the one thing is basically like, how much time, you're 24 years old, this guy, and then all the things that he's giving me, like in this debate, it comes from this teachings that he had. I also had,
mm.
So, like, where is the point, the moment where, and it's 24 years, like this guy, he can die before he becomes 40 years old. Yeah, then. We can
Yeah,
say,
you
okay,
should tell him to go read the Quran, and then we'll have a debate.
okay.
How could it, because if he doesn't even know anything about the Quran, I mean, how is or if he's willing to see the Quran, like show him, but you can give him the book, for example, Quran, Hadith, and Islam, tell him to read it, I think that's much better for the Sunni Muslims.
Because are we looking only for the types of people who are generally interested, like the ones who are, because but you have
Well, you
also
want to talk to people who you have hope for, right? I mean, when you start debating with people like that who are like totally blocked, there's no point in talking
brother,
to them in the first place, right?
there is a huge difference. Like I can give you this one example. Yeah, there is this new brother who came into you. He just came into submission. We started doing, and he was running for the Friday prayers. Like he was calling me, asking what time,
Hmm.
etc. So, and this person, like it didn't really take a lot of effort and time, and he understood so many, like for the things that are so complicated for so many people, he understood it, even me, without finishing my sentences. Like in the
Hmm.
half of my sentence, he already understood. Okay, he said yes. Oh, I understand. Oh no, I see. Like, and then like, but there's a huge difference between those two type of people. One is extremely easy. Like you just need to. Then I'm thinking, wow, like how is this possible that someone who comes from the same society, had the same, all the things that we receive from the Sunni societies, he has it too. Yeah, it's like sometimes a little bit confusing. And then then what I want to do is, okay, the other guy is like 24 years old, still is young. Maybe he needs more time. You understand? So then you keep on going with the discussion, because it seems to me like giving up on that person. When you end quickly, you understand? Like that's, yeah.
Hmm. In and out.
What do you mean, John?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, brother, someone said in and out. And one
Who said
word,
it?
like, no, that was my
No,
aunt.
he said in and out.
Up
You
and down.
defending.
I'm misreading.
Up and down.
Yeah, yeah, just to, like, my, usually I can tell, I think, what I think is just the soul. I mean, we don't know the souls of these people, but God knows their souls. So, I mean, not to say like these people can't change, but usually, like when I'm talking to somebody, like you don't know their position until you kind of get to talking to them and then see a bunch of different cues, body responses, and stuff, and what they say. But like pretty quickly, I can tell. I'm really not gonna. There was only one debate I think probably in the last 8 9 months, but and it wasn't even too long. It was maybe like 10 minutes, and it was with another Christian, and it was just to correct, more so like correct him. Honestly, I wasn't even trying. I felt like he was kind of stuck, but it was more like you're defending the truth. You're not gonna sit by and let this person say blasphemous things or just make stuff up. So I'm just politely correcting him and stuff, and then telling him and asking him questions. But after that, like I didn't bother talking to him about this again. Because like I can tell pretty quickly like where their position is, and if it's like their mind is made up. I don't think we should spend too much time on them. Like you don't want to force them to believe. Like the verse
Yeah.
say,
Yeah,
because
kind
they're
of
not.
like what we see people doing on these online
Yeah,
servers,
Discord, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. It's actually repulsive. Like I've scrolled through and I've seen it. That's actually what repulsed me. Like 3 years ago, back in 23, when Naveed messaged me, and I wasn't. I just checked it out, and I wasn't even, and it was just like, it was a bunch of things, but yeah, it's not, it's just like pretty much like what you see with them, like, oh, I know I'm right, and then how much can I show off, and then it's not. I don't think it comes from a genuine. I mean, I could be wrong with some of the people, but I think if you're trying to if you genuinely like want this person to believe, but you can quickly find out that I think within the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then I don't think it should persist because then you're just like talking to a wall, and then it's gonna end up
but brother, there is a verse where God says that certain people whom are like almost fighting against you. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but then it says they can become even better than you, right? Like, doesn't
No,
that
no, we're
make
talking about
sense?
people who
Well,
you have hope for, right? You're talking about people who you have
oh,
hope
okay,
for, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the people you don't have hope for, the people who
yeah,
said
Mm,
their
like
minds are made up, they're locked in
mhm,
disbeliefs, you know.
yeah,
So
mm, mm.
that's some people you will talk to, they're hopeless. Like some people I
Okay.
know that you may want to talk to about Jaffer, but I know they're completely hopeless. You know,
You're right. Yeah.
like you can tell from the
Yeah.
arguments they're making, right? They're
yeah,
hopeless.
exactly. That's a big indicator. The arguments they're making, and then how like
Mm,
oppose and averse, like when you mention God alone, or you see them get uncomfortable, like in that situation, and then I'm like, man, he really doesn't like what I'm telling him, and like he's really, I guess,
Yeah,
gung ho about the idol worship in Christianity. But so from that point, I just was like, felt like I needed to defend, like God's truth, and like not let this person get away with saying these things without, enlightening him. And then kind of quickly, when I just said what I need to say in a good manner, though, I like cut the conversation short, and I just says, well, may God guide us both, and and I ended up sending him a P. I said, look, what I can do if you're interested. And at this point, I didn't have any, like, I was just kind of done. I just sent him, a PDF of the Quran. And I think I sent him the link to submission just so the ball was in his court. Like, I'm done, like, because, but so that's what, I mean, a lot of times you can do, you just end up, I mean, I guess whatever way you see fit.
yeah, and I mean, what the messenger did, right? Essentially, like he gave the message to
mm,
people. He delivered the message. God says, "We did not send you to be their advocate." It's not your job to like convince, quote unquote, convince people. Like if someone is destined to accept the message, like they're open to it. You'll give them,
mm,
you'll talk to them. Words will naturally come out, and they'll if they're destined to accept it, they'll accept it. If they're not meant to accept it, God says they'll argue and everything, and their ego will
mm,
be manifested in that. Like you see people in submission for 20 years, right? They were arguing back then, and they're arguing the same way now. Nothing changes, right? It just shows that they're arrogant people that are going to be arrogant and disbelieving, and they've been the same. I was like, these things. I mean, people can change, right? But when you see people that you don't have hope for, you kind of know um, by these different signs, right? So when you see people who are completely closed-minded, and you see the, for example, the hostility, like you mentioned, things get heating and stuff, and they're just coming up with lies and accusations about the messengers and stuff. They're just debating with nonsense. They don't have any base to even talk about what they're saying. Um, and you show them the things, right? That's the main guiding thing for me. I see, like, okay, I talk to a person, right? I show him the proofs, I show him the evidence, I show them the logic. Now, what do they do with it? Do they acknowledge it? No, they don't. They just, like kick it away, without even looking at it. So those people, obviously, there's no hope for those people, right? Like these people we talked about before, right? We showed them the proofs about apostles, for example, right? And they're just giving you numbers. I mean, they're just giving you arguments from a disbeliever who doesn't believe in the Quran, who's trying to tell you that the Al-Fatiha is a fabrication, and they're using his arguments as the proof, right? And I don't have any hope for that person at that point, you know. Like you're saying, no, look, can you see like you're using arguments from a disbeliever? Well, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, praise God, God showed me proof from through a disbeliever to convince me. He says, so that shows like person. God says, when the ignorant speak to you out of peace, there is no point in me just wasting my breath, talking to you. I might better just do something like go to the gym or something else if I want to, burn calories.
Yeah, yeah, burning calories. Yeah.
Yeah, reminds me of the
Yeah.
verse. I'm sure three heard it the other day, but it says the believers never ally themselves with the disbelievers. Instead of the believers, whoever does this is exiled from God. So imagine what he just. I mean, like him. What
What?
you what
What?
he's like allying himself, defending and praising an atheist disbeliever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that was
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
In
those people are exiled from God. You know.
yeah, in 127 it says, "You shall resort to patience, and your patience is attainable only with God's help. Do not grieve over them, and do not be annoyed by their schemes." Yeah, like do not grieve over them. You know what is very funny, brother, is like, when you try to have debates with people and most of them don't accept it, and it's like so difficult for them to understand even the most easy, most simple certain things, right? Like a basic math. Like the person who said basmala is not 19 letters, he said it's 21 or something like that, like he invented the invisible letters only, to not to believe in it.
Yeah.
But when you have all these debates and everything's going on and they just keep ignoring and not believing in it, and then some guy comes over and like you don't even have to end your sentence and he accepts it, like
Mhm.
it's like it makes you really happy, but also like you're shocked, like really, are you sure? Like you you don't want to like you don't want to check more
Yeah.
evidences, like I have 1,000 more if you want to see, but no, I have seen
Mhm.
two is enough for me, like it's really amazing, like really. I was like, at the moment, I really was like that. I was like, but shouldn't I tell you more before you accept? Like, yeah, it's really. But this guy, high IQ,
It's
mashallah,
like
he's very smart.
brother Jeff. We already been talking for about an hour. Like,
Yeah.
that's enough.
But I must say, I really must say, when when we talk about, like, when you tell the truth to someone, yeah, like you really tell and talk about God and the truth, the message, right? And when the person next to you looking into your eyes and he accepts it, like that's really different, and then when it's very fast, it's even more amazing. Sometimes people need 1 year or like a few months, or you talk with them like 10 20 times before they accept it at all. But if you have someone who's accepting so fast, like that's really proves actually the verse where, the thing that you're talking, that like if someone is meant to believe, like it doesn't take a lot effort for them to accept it.
Yeah,
MashaAllah.
exactly. I mean, and we can all see from our own lives, right? I mean, how much convincing did we need from other people? Like the message came, we were thirsty. God inspired
Mm,
us, all of us, right? Each and every one of us. Like we didn't put up a fight with anybody, we didn't argue with other people before we accepted, and that shows that God, how He guides people and like who He guides.
mm,
So I mean, these people that I see that will um, debate with other people, and then I'm gonna show you in public how knowledgeable I am, and like, oh yeah, I got defeated now, and then someone gets shamed into accepting maybe, and they stick around for a while. I don't know. I'm yet to see people who have like debated and debated and. argued,
Hmm.
and then finally been defeated, and now they're great submitters. You know.
Hmm. Brother, I didn't like in my case. No one.
Wait, they
Uh,
use words like you've been defeated, like it's a video game or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you
they
go to
had
level
that.
2, level 3.
yeah,
They
and you
had
know
that
this
in
is the
English,
thing,
right?
right? All these people they play these games and stuff so much,
Yeah, it's exactly what it
right?
seems
And
like. It's
and
just
that's why they
video
kind of
game.
end up on Discord in the first place.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah. Like grow
Yes,
up,
yes.
Like
Yeah,
this
it's
is what's
already for
for.
gamers and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, like in my own thing, now you mentioned it, Suleiman, like I never thought about it like that. That there was not a person who came to me and convinced me that, this is the truth and, I need to follow only the Quran and that Rashad was a message. Like, I didn't had any debate with anyone at all about this topic. I just, I don't know how was it in your case or in John's situation, but
Yeah, my kids say
but yeah,
everybody here.
this
You know,
amazing. Yeah, I never thought it about like this. Like, did I? No one came to me and convinced
yeah,
me of
yeah. But
that way.
even if someone came
Okay.
to you, like, did you put up a fight? You know, like someone
Hmm.
can come and tell you, right? Like you told, I don't know, Brother Mardani, you told Brother Mardani, right? But Brother Mardani wasn't arguing with you endlessly.
No,
You
no, no.
know,
He wasn't. He was
no.
only
So
asking
yeah.
very smart questions, mashallah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like those questions were not too. They were. It was not like questions that attacks. They were all
Yeah,
questions,
exactly.
very
Mm-hmm.
smart questions, very
Mm-hmm.
logical questions actually, and we had
Mm-hmm.
answers to all of those,
Yeah,
mashallah.
yeah. It's not like he was fighting with you. It's not like there was a shouting match. You know, it wasn't like he was trying to prove you wrong.
No, no, no. Yeah, mashallah.
And things you were saying, I'm sure like he was, weighing those, and not saying no, you're lying and stuff like that.
No, he never
You know,
said this.
yeah,
Never. He always said, like, I need to think about it. And then he thought, he came with other questions, mashallah. And then, he quickly understood, mashallah, that, but we already had certain, like, but I must say, we were sincere Sunnis.
hmm
We were sincere Sunnis before we became
hmm
submitters. So
yeah,
like we believed in the hadith, like we
yeah,
were not like you have so many Sunnis that believe
yeah,
in the hadith, but they don't follow any sunnah.
yeah.
Like
Huda and I were the same. So,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
exception of John, we were all
Mhm,
like practicing, like
mhm,
Sunnis, So,
mhm, mhm,
but in our cases, obviously for all of us, God guided us to it. Um, and when we saw the message, we reflected on it instead of argued back and forth, and
mhm,
eventually
mhm.
came to the right conclusion by God's
Yeah,
grace,
mashallah.
right? So the thing is, like, we shouldn't worry about
You're right.
people, that we have to convince people.
But brother,
We can introduce them to the message, and
but
if
Mike.
God wants them to have it, they will have it.
Okay,
That's why
so
God
Yeah,
says,
that's perfect.
give
Yeah,
it with
yeah.
them
He
with
wants to
wisdom
say,
and enlightenment. Yeah.
mashallah, yeah, that's perfect. That's the introduction, and that's basically like
the,
honestly, it's you just put the ball in their court, and if you get good feedback from it, you can continue. But otherwise, that's all
Yeah,
really we're
the
responsible.
on, yeah, but I want to add something. Like, the part of the question was actually not based on the other person, but it's more based on myself. I am reflecting my own um, deeds. You understand what I mean? Like, I understand that if they are not going to accept it because they are destined not to believe in it, right? The only thing is when me as a person at that moment, like you get
Yeah.
carried
No, I know,
away.
I know that. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, those moments will not happen if you're not just like stuck with people that you're not supposed to be debating
Mm,
with in the first place. You know, that's not the
okay.
problem. The problem is that
You're right. Yeah.
you're wasting time with the wrong people. There are people that are closed-minded and are not going to accept. So don't spend time talking to the same people again and again about something that's
Hmm.
beating a dead horse, right?
Yes.
That's my feedback.
Yeah. 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 I understand. like okay, you start and then you talk about it, you see how they reflect, if it's like logical, honest, like they accept certain truths, then you can clearly see maybe a path for them and then give the message. But if you already can see that it's like very fast going to the other
Hmm.
direction, then that
Yeah.
maybe is a clue not to waste time and effort into. Yeah,
Mm,
okay.
yeah. So like you mentioned it, right? You said you have this family meeting, right? And you have these family meetings where these people are Sunnis and they mock and they ridicule and mm, so you shouldn't be debate. Not only you should not be debating with them, but you shouldn't even be hanging out with them in the first place. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, like if you've seen you have debated with these people for a long time, right? And they don't accept, uh, like you, you have a saying that everyone hangs on there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you see that yeah, if you see that they're not they're closed-minded, you know,
Hmm.
and you don't have hope for these people. I mean, I don't know. Do you have hope for these people that you
No,
talk to?
yeah. So there are a lot of people. So it's not only one person. And
Hmm.
then you have these different moments, situations where, for example, certain people whom I totally know that they're not going to accept, they leave, for example. And, for example, last night, I ended up staying only with my younger brother and his wife, and me and my wife and the kids. So then with him, I still have some certain, like, because there was a moment where he started realizing that the way how he was debating was not really logical and he made so many mistakes. It was basically about, the Quran being protected. And I showed him, remember, there was this picture of a Quran where in the end, Amin was written as well. You remember
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So
Hmm.
he was debating with me that the Quran was protected by the people who remember the Quran for 1400 years and it was perfect and no one could change it. And first I asked him about it, like, do you mean really no one can write anything in the Quran or change it? Because the topic was about 9, 128, and 129. Then I showed him the picture of a Quran where they added like Amin to it. Like this proved basically that you can like add in a book certain letters and words, but when you have the mathematical miracle, you can't basically because it's like stops you from adding anything at all. Then I saw, for example, that he like started to understand a little bit that his point was like not logical, and then after that he started listening a little bit more, just a little bit because he was already confused. He was like he was like very heavily staying to his point that it couldn't be done, and like you had these two witnesses for every verse, and I started telling him, yeah, but for 128 and
Hmm.
29 they had only one
How
witness.
long? How long have you
uh,
been debating with him? I mean, how long have you been giving him the message?
I don't see them a lot.
Yeah, but how long have you been talking to him?
You mean if I combine the hours and the
No,
days? You
not the
mean?
hours.
Like, what do you mean by that?
How long
Like,
has it been since you have been giving him the
yeah,
message?
they know me being different about religion, of course, and
No,
the
I'm
some
saying how
issues.
long has it been since you first talked to him about
To
submission?
him,
Like,
okay.
yeah.
I think a year or two.
And he still
But
doesn't accept it. So, I
yeah,
mean, the
but we.
messenger of the covenant, for example, he spoke to his father for 4 months, right? To convince him. After 4 months, he realized, he came to the conclusion that his father was not going to accept it.
Mhm,
And his father told him that, says, I will not enter this masjid unless you put
mhm,
Muhammad name here. And he says, he
mhm,
says, he says that that's, I think I'm paraphrasing, but he says that's what he believes. He says, you're not to step foot in this masjid, he says, because God says the idol
mhm,
worshippers are killed. And
mhm.
he ended it
Yeah.
at that point. So I think
Mhm,
4 months is a good time for him to come to that conclusion with his dad. I mean, everybody has their own
mhm,
time, but I mean, I mean, the messenger of the covenant was also a busy person. He was talking to a lot of people, traveling to all these different countries, talking to people about submission and having Quran studies with different believers around the world and stuff. And he was pretty busy with writing books and all that. So I'm sure, like, he didn't spend the whole 4 months talking to him alone, but he spent, time talking to him as well. And after a few months, he realized that, he's a disbeliever, and that was it. So if you
Mm.
debate with a person for 2 years and they're still not convinced, then maybe you're talking to the wrong person.
Mhm. Yeah, like 2 years, but like debating is like maybe three times or something like that. Like not in the
You
sense
still
all
have
the
enough
time.
time. But Jaffer,
Hmm.
when you talk to him the first time, 2 years ago, he could
Hmm.
go and look at the website and everything's there. You could
Hmm.
talk to him the second time. Let's say first time he forgot. You talk to him the second
Hmm.
time, he can go and look at it if he's really,
Hmm.
serious about his salvation. You
Makes
know,
sense. Yeah.
and he's
Yeah,
not.
like
So.
I say at this point, like reminds me from the verse from Surah 23. Like you ever I can't remember exactly, but it says after everything you've rejected my revelations after everything has been clearly explained to you. But uh, yeah, I mean that's a pretty long time. So I mean, if he's still debating with you and stuff now,
Hmm.
because I mean,
Yeah.
even if he was gonna accept, like I think you did everything you did. I mean, he has the links. I'm sure he's been given the Quran. He knows. So you can go research. I mean, as far as you're concerned, that's what you make the judgment on. Which
Hmm.
I feel like it's probably clear, maybe, but if he ends up accepting 5 years later, that's God
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
he could
Hmm.
always come back to you and be like, hey
Hmm.
brother, it's been a long time, but
Hmm.
that's where like I think we have to draw the line. Like I had to do with
Hmm.
somebody that was close to me, and um see, but yeah, but mine it took a while though, but because this person was more
Hmm.
clever, and sneaky, and
Hmm.
like you would think he actually believes and stuff, and but then like he'll
Yeah.
like try to secretly convince you that the messenger was wrong, and it was his opinions and stuff, and then he would it was like hearing Satan talk.
Hmm. Makes sense, brother. Yeah, that's what you said about like if they are destined to believe, even after a few years, they can come back. Mashallah. By the way,
Yeah, but
brother
you could
Sim,
be
I
hurting
need
your
to.
soul. You could be hurting your
Mm,
soul at that point that you're like,
mm,
dealing with them with business as usual. At that point,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
if it's pretty clear, like to me, it's pretty clear that these people are kind of hopeless.
Mm,
So,
mm,
because like if the fact is that these are not people, for example, these are not Christians you're talking about, right? Like these are people who already have the Quran, you know, and then like you said, you guys grew up in a very traditional upbringing you had, right? Where you had, were taught this nonsense from the
mm,
beginning. So like you saw the ugliness of
mm.
the religion somewhat, and so you should be, so someone like that should be very curious to know what you have to say
Mm.
and do the research,
Yes.
you know. So.
Like you remember the thing. It starts with witness a miracle.
Hmm.
When you ask, when if you would ask like everyone in the whole world, would you like do you want to witness a miracle? I think most of the people would say yes, right? Like who yeah, like you should be
Of
curious, right?
course.
Yeah, miracle, yeah, like
Yeah, but
Yeah.
witness a
some people
miracle.
some people don't care, don't believe you. Like I was actually one of the angles I came from. Who's someone who's still like open and interested, but he said he grew up in Christianity. I said, we've been talking about different things. I've talked about submission before, and he finds it like interesting. But yeah, so what if he was asking like he doesn't know like what to follow or something. Like I don't think he wants to follow a quote unquote religion. But I told him, I said, what if I told you like there was a book that came from like deep space, because he likes space, like outer space and stuff, and I said, nah. And I said, what if, and then I don't even think I think he started talking about something else, so, because I said, like I said, like, what if I showed you something like with actual proof, like it was divine and had actual physical proof, and it came from like outer space, like deep space, and then he didn't really say anything. And we ended up just talking about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he likes outer space and stuff too, so I was like,
Yeah. You're like maybe poor John, fell off the
yeah.
stairs or something when he was young.
But yeah, like we were talking, he was saying that he feels like, because I was telling him about the great feud and stuff, and like why we're here, and we're just, we work together. And he was like, no, I never told anybody this, but that's interesting. He said, because he used to have similar thoughts for like the past couple of years, that he feels like he's not himself, like as far as the human, and like he's a soul basically, because I was explaining to him about the soul, and then he feels like we were sent here for some reason, like to learn something, and that's when I started going more into the stuff. I actually need to send him some of the links and stuff, and some of the introduction.
Brothers, by the way, I have a question. So I actually need to leave to pick up the kids and my wife. Maybe I could stop the streaming and then we can keep on the phone. I
Sure.
could do that. Is that okay?
Okay, so yeah, so thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Brother Jaffer, for leading the study. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Oh, yeah.
Hmm?
This Tuesday, I'm not gonna be here. Actually, I'm flying out. God willing.
Okay.
So maybe we can. And Wednesday I'm also flying. So
Maybe Thursday.
yeah, we could do Thursday. God willing. Yeah,
Yeah,
inshallah.
I'll talk to my brother Suleiman's flight.
Okay. So if I'll do